Tomatoes are one thing that I recommend you do not leave in the garden bed. I even picked up every little cherry tomato that was on the ground and threw that away. I don't even want to compost this material because tomatoes can harbor diseases. And I don't want those diseases going in my compost pile and then ending up back in my vegetable garden. Some people do compost their tomatoes and it is possible that it will heat up enough to maybe kill a disease, but I'm not even taking the chance. The other thing that happens when you pull your plants out is you get an opportunity to look at the root system. And I recommend this because sometimes you think, well, my plant didn't do as well as I thought it did. It could be because your root system was not very healthy. And when you look at a tomato plant, you need to know that the roots don't grow down. These roots were all spread out like tentacles all inside the garden bed. So that's a good thing to investigate. It's also really hard to compost something this woody unless you chop it up a bunch. So if that's the option you're going to take, I recommend you totally chop it up. I have some basil plants here and I've clipped them back. They're not super happy this time of year, but I'm still clipping on them and eating them. But as soon as I'm done with these, I'm gonna chop these up and put them in my compost pile. And the other thing I'm gonna do to put this garden bed to bed is I'm going to put a thin layer of compost over the top dressing. I'm not digging it in, I'm just putting a blanket over the top of this garden bed for the winter. And this is compost that was from my compost pile. I've just piled it up here, and all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put it around the bed. You see a few leaves in here that fell from a tree, and I don't care, that's a few, that's fine. And I'm just gonna put a thin layer of compost all over this bed, and it'll be okay, not everything needs to be cleaned up in your garden bed, and there can be beneficial reasons to keep it there. These are fava beans, and fava beans evidently will grow maybe through the winter and maybe even give me some beans. You can see the interesting flowers on there now. I'm going to keep these fava beans in this garden bed until spring. Then I'm going to chop them off at the base, and I'm going to leave the roots in there because this is a nitrogen fixing plant. So that's a benefit to your garden bed if you leave the roots. And the tops, I'm just going to chop up and put in a compost bin. Okay, here's another plant that I'm going to clean up in the next week or so, and these are cucumbers. I don't know if you can see any of these down here. I am not going to save these either, and I'm not going to compost these. Again, I'm concerned about disease or powdery mildew, so I'm going to clean this up and pull up the roots just like on my tomato plants, and I'm going to throw those away. Now there are some garden beds where mainly I have flowers where I'm not going to do cleanup this year. In fact, I'm going to be comfortable with putting more leaves over here to provide insulation. In the spring, I will clean them up and compost them. But right now, I want critters to live there. And the great thing about black-eyed Susans and coneflowers and a lot of perennial flowers is you think they look dead. But this is food, and these seed heads are just packed with hundreds of little black seeds. There are songbirds that love to eat this, goldfinches and pine siskins, which little itty bitty sparrow type birds will come here all winter and eat. I have flowers in here that are not perennials. These are zinnias, they're annuals. And again, they start looking a little shaggy and they may not have flowers later, but again, they serve the same purpose as the black-eyed Susans. I'm gonna leave these up until spring because the seeds are food for wildlife. I mean, it's hard to leave things messy in the fall. We naturally want to pick up every single leaf and cut down everything that looks dead. I like to have a balance of the two. My lawn, okay, I'm going to clean these leaves up. My lawn needs to have some sunlight. But over here in a bed of flowers and roses, I'm going to leave these here because there are lots of animals and critters that live in these leaves, like wasps overwinter underneath shrubs and leaves. We have slugs and beetles and centipedes and millipedes and spiders.
Your favorite?
My favorite.